And if we could all please stand and take the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. At this point, I'd like to turn the meeting over to our treasurer, Ashley Brudno, for the oath of office for our new board members.
Okay, so new board members could join me in front of the table. We'll administer your oath. Oh, you want me to-
Yeah, just like the, just take the whole thing, lift the whole thing up.
Good. Okay, start singing. Okay. Do you solemnly swear that you will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of Ohio, and that you will faithfully and impartially discharge your duties as members of the Board of Education of the Chagrin Falls Exempted Village School District, Cuyahoga and Geauga Counties, Ohio, to the best of your ability and in accordance with the laws now in effect and hereafter to be enacted during your continuance in said office and until your successor is elected and qualified? The answer is I do. Congratulations.
Congratulations. Now I'd like to open the floor for nominations for president for the school board for this calendar year.
I would like to nominate Sharon Brose for president for the upcoming school year. She has been a member of the school board for just finishing her 6th year. This is her 2nd term. She has served on multiple committees. She has a very strong finance background. She is the liaison for the levy committee, for the bond committee. She has served in, before she was on the board, she was heavily involved in the district. She also was involved in the turnaround of the district from being ranked 25th in the state to its current ranking of 6th. But most of all, I think she is the total example and exemplifies public service and the willingness to step up and to do this job and to take this on. And I really appreciate her willingness of her service. So.
Do we have any other nominations for the role of president? Okay, Mrs. Bruno, if you'd please take the roll.
Mrs. Bendel,
Yes.
Mrs. Brose,
Yes.
Mrs. Garvey,
Yes,
Mrs. Miller,
yes.
Dr. Schlepper.
Yes.
And now I'll open the floor for nominations for vice president of the school board for this calendar year. I'd like to nominate Lori Bendel, if she's willing. I think she would do a great job. It's a wonderful role for a new school board member, working closely with the administration. And I think some of the reasons why we brought you in as a new school board member were to help us transition in some new leadership in the district. So this will be a great role for you, and appreciate if you're willing to take it.
Yes.
Great.
Thank you.
Are there any other nominations for the role of vice president? Okay, Mrs. Bruno, would you please take the roll?
Mrs. Bendel,
Yes.
Mrs. Brose,
Yes.
Mrs. Garvey,
Yes.
Mrs. Miller. Yes. Dr. Schlepper.
Yes.
Okay, so now we will switch the meeting with our new president taking,
We have to do the oath first.
oh, you did oaths? Sorry, did I miss that?
I didn't know that.
I can't move fast enough out of that chair.
I regret teaching me to do this. Okay. Do you solemnly swear that you will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of Ohio, and that you will faithfully and impartially discharge your duties as president and vice president of the Board of Education of the Chagrin Falls Exempted Village School District, Cuyahoga and Geauga Counties, Ohio, to the best of your ability and in accordance with the laws now in effect and hereafter to be enacted during your continuance in said office and until your successor is elected and qualified? As I do. Congratulations.
Can I have a motion for item D, please?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
A second?
Any just comments or? This is all the things that we're approving on in the organizational meeting are things that we approve on an annual basis that enable the district to run smoothly. It's a lot of the law firms that we work with and some of the things that we have to approve by law in order for our treasurer and our superintendent to run the schools. Okay, please take the roll, Mrs. Bruno.
Mrs. Rose,
Yes.
Mrs. Bendel,
Yes.
Mrs. Garvey,
Yes.
Mrs. Miller,
Yes.
Dr. Slepper.
Yes.
Could I have a motion for item 3A, please?
Through
Oh, okay,
Oh.
3A, 1 through
items, yeah.
18.
So moved.
Do I have a second?
A second?
Any discussion?
I just want to point out that the tax budget is draft form currently, so you vote and approve it. It will be then finalized. I will sign it and send it to the county. They do still have the opportunity to make changes to it, so sometimes they do make little changes here or there. And then that is what they will use to create our certificate of estimated resources. So it's routine, but I just wanted to point it out.
Please take the roll.
Mrs. Rose,
Yes.
Mrs. Bendel,
Yes.
Mrs. Garvey,
Yes.
Mrs. Miller,
Yes.
Dr. Schlepper.
Yes.
Item 4A, now we approve the liaisons and committees, advisory committees for the board for the year or until the board votes to dissolve them. Could I have a motion for item 4A and B, please?
So moved.
A second?
I'll second.
Moved by Mrs. Bendel, seconded by Mrs. Miller. Ashley, please, does anyone have any conversation? So I will
Are we
say,
just approving the structure?
we're just approving the structure.
Okay.
The board had a work session on Saturday to streamline and build expertise, put the focus back on the students is our goal for the year, and engage more directly with the community. So some of these committees are new in nature and some of the liaison roles are new in nature, but we're very excited about the direction this district is going and excited about progress we made on Saturday with the structure. Any other discussion?
I just have one question, Dr. Pizarski, with regard to upcoming negotiations. Do you foresee that being an additional board liaison to, or someone who would be part of one of the committees?
We typically in the past have just assigned in negotiation years. So once we know what month, and it will just be with OPSI.
Right.
And usually it's about a month before, and
Okay.
we can just approve that if we'd like as the liaison, but you're not required to approve a liaison. So
Okay.
you can just be appointed.
I wouldn't vote on that. I think that would just be.
Sorry, Ashley, I didn't hear you.
I said that's not something, I'm sorry, I don't know what's going on with my voice. You would need to vote on. Jennifer would just assign somebody.
Just assign somebody.
as-
Okay.
As a
We
liaison.
have in the past, so I just want
Oh,
to make
okay.
sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
so-
Okay, thank you.
Ashley, please take the roll.
Mrs. Rose,
Yes.
Mrs. Bendel,
Yes.
Mrs. Garvey,
Yes.
Mrs. Miller,
Yes.
Dr. Schlepper.
Yes.
Can I have a motion to adjourn the organizational meeting?
So moved.
Second,
I'll second.
moved by Mrs. Garvey, seconded by Dr. Schlepper. Ashley, would you please take the roll?
Mrs. Rose,
Yes.
Mrs. Bendel,
Yes.
Mrs. Garvey,
Yes.
Mrs. Miller,
Yes.
Dr. Schlepper.
Yes.
Do we want to take a quick break?
No,
before
we can
resume
reset
for our
for the
work
work
session?
session.
Okay,
Sounds
sounds
good.
good. Thank you.
Mrs. Garvey is my mother-in-law anyway.
Are we all ready? Okay. And today's date is, I'd like to call to order the January 12th work session for the Chagrin Falls Board of Education. I can't remember, do we call the roll? Mrs. Bruno, or Ashley, please call the roll.
Mrs. Bros,
Yes.
Mrs. Bendel,
Yes.
Mrs. Garvey,
Here.
Mrs. Miller,
Here.
Dr. Schlepper.
Here.
Okay, the first item on our work session agenda is a discussion of the structure of our meetings, our meeting format, our meeting location. And I will, would you like me to turn that over to you, Jennifer, or, okay.
The first thing that we were going to work on and that we wanted to discuss was the language on the agendas for public participation. I think that was shared with all of you. It's what we've had. I think we made some refinements last fall, but we can work through, I think, and Lori, I didn't delete the last sentence. I think that's what kind of where we had left things, but if we just want to tighten this up, then Barb will put it on the agendas for future meetings.
Okay.
And it's reflected in policy as well, so we'll need to change the policy. The language is restated in policy.
Not
I
sure
don't
this
think
is.
so. I think it's.
Is it not
No,
exactly?
No,
I
I
was
didn't
surprised
know.
actually. It was in.
Okay.
I
It's
looked
in
it
the
up, it was in
default.
governance.
It's in the
actually,
governance manual.
Yeah,
Right, which we didn't approve tonight because that's not ready.
which we will need to
Okay.
flow
I
through.
guess what I'm thinking is policy does say 30 minutes unless it's an extension. Yeah, there is
Is there
policy.
That,
Absolutely.
that is in
Public
there.
partic-
This,
yeah.
In government, yeah,
But-
this language
yes.
is in.
but
just
that
the
we're not,
governance manual.
we're not changing that.
No.
But
Okay.
Right.
Yeah, there is policy on public participation and
No, I
there's
know there's
some,
also policy on public behavior, but the actual language that we read before, we're
Right,
talking
right,
specifically about that. language,
Exactly.
And that's only. in
if we
governance.
change anything like how long
We have to
the
flow through
period
policy.
is or anything
Right,
like that, it
and
has
we're
to
not
go.
changing
Yeah, okay.
Right.
Sorry.
No,
No,
absolutely.
it's good.
I don't know what we're changing. I just
Well,
never
this is-
possibly make these changes.
And we
so-
don't have to change anything, so be clear, but
Right.
this is what's written on the regular board meetings. And so that was the piece that we wanted to maybe look at again. And so that's the piece that.
So most of it is really process oriented, except for the last, not the last, the second to last sentence, which I would recommend we remove. At this time, the primary role of the Board of Ed is to listen and reflect on your comments. Because
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of directions. I looked at what other districts do, and there's a lot of things that they do. They'll talk about resolving conflicts, they'll talk about avoiding harassment. They have a lot, because this is a limited public forum. It's not a complete free-for-all, but I think just eliminating the last sentence probably gets at the tone that we're looking for. And not the last sentence, we've added the
Second
last
to
sentence about
last.
context, but
Yeah.
the one before it is where I think we probably wanted to be.
I think the intent was to get at, you may not get a response from the board. And to let people know, you may come and you may say something, and sometimes it's not even appropriate for
Right.
the board to respond. So just so people understand, it's not a dialogue, it's not like a back and forth.
And
But it
then-
doesn't mean we can't respond if it's an appropriate.
Which is,
thing
I
to
think, the way it
respond
was
to.
being interpreted.
Mhm.
Simply would not ever respond, and that's not the intention.
And I think it's important for us to respond to hearing what people are saying and the feedback, even if we're not responding with action or providing additional information at that time. I think we can still acknowledge what's been said.
Okay, yeah, again, I think the intent is just so people who would ahead of time know that you may not get, it's not an opportunity to have a discussion with the board,
Correct.
right? And so I don't know if there's a way to wordsmith it so it says that, or if just the first sentence says that this is, it's not a public forum, if you feel like that is sufficient.
I think it is. I mean, I think that it's implicit that we may or may not respond.
Right,
I think the problem with that sentence is it basically said we're not, it implies that we will not respond.
Right.
It was being interpreted as we will definitely not respond, which I think is further than we need to go.
okay. One
Do
thing
you-
that would be helpful, I know we've asked people to let us know, if possible, to let either Ashley or Jennifer or you know. And one of the things you could incorporate into your reply is that, just so you know, the board may just listen to your feedback. Like if you want to have a dialogue, there are other ways to do that more efficiently.
I can do that.
When people contact you. so
Right,
there's some
yeah.
people following.
Right.
Doesn't always happen, but when they do, absolutely.
Do you, either of you have anything else? about that?
That covers it.
Okay,
And none of this takes a vote or anything. This is
Right.
just getting input. So
okay.
there's no action. But we'll clean, I wrote down the notes, and if that's the sentence, I will make sure Barb knows.
Yeah, maybe before that through governance.
Yeah, when we redo governance,
Yeah, I
we
know,
can
so there's a
align.
bunch of things in there that need to be updated.
We're pulling the
Policies
governance manual off, right?
It wasn't voted on tonight.
Yeah,
It's not ready.
No, at all. And I think we're gonna get there further tonight with some of the other draft documents that we have.
My opinion, based on Saturday, it's gonna look completely different. So
Totally agree.
we'll get this sent off, and we should be, just so I know how to reorganize the templates. So the second item was just the board agendas in general, like kind of looking at if the structure works. There was just a list of all the topics and how they go. The one thing that we had discussed on Saturday was to put in a student showcase. And so I thought maybe that would be something that we would want to add to this template. Is just, or just talk about if you were comfortable. Sorry, I have too many tabs open. And I think that that should go near the beginning, only because that way the students can go home, and especially when we're talking about going to Gurney and having student showcases at Gurney. I just want to make sure that we're fair to families.
Yeah.
And
Because these are the meetings we're talking about having at 7 PM, right? Not very early.
Yeah. the
It's
second meeting of the
also,
month.
it's also the most predictable then too, if we have them up front.
First thing,
Otherwise it could be.
right.
wrong.
So after the Pledge of Allegiance,
Well, typically you would approve the minutes.
Okay.
Ours fell
Right.
where number 4.
Yeah.
Before board reports.
Okay.
So if everyone was comfortable, we could do the student showcases there. My thought is that the superintendent reports, which would now move down one notch, is where the presentations should go. So even if someone, that's kind of what you, I don't know how you think, but if you want it moved up after the student showcase, the superintendent reports, and then do board reports and board recommendations, those kinds of pieces, or if we just want to leave the superintendent's reports before the public participation. It's just trying to navigate where those presentations happen.
I think they should be before public participation, because a lot of times somebody will look at an agenda and see something and not really understand, and then you come and present it, and then their questions already answered, like, oh, okay, get it. Or because of the presentation, now they have further
Different
questions.
questions.
Right.
So you want that, I mean, you want that before the vote, so before recommendations, but it should still be after the presentations, just to give everybody the same information.
So go with call to order, pledge of allegiance, student showcase, approval of minutes, board reports, board recommendations, if any, superintendent reports, that's where the presentations would fall, and then public participation. I think the rest of it is pretty. You have your consent agenda, then you have the superintendent recommendations, treasurer recommendations, other business. You announce the next meeting. If there's executive session, you would approve that, and then there's an adjournment of the regular meeting.
You have more experience with the district liaisons and some of the liaison to the advisory committees than we do. Do you think the superintendent's reports should come before the board reports, or do you think it should 4, 5, and 6 should stay in that order?
typically the district liaison would speak at the board report, the committee, like the board committee report, and not the superintendent report.
Okay,
You know, I'm wondering, what do you think about changing it to district reports instead of board reports?
Yeah.
Because we're not doing,
Yeah.
the only board report is the actual records retention.
I would say, yeah, and then that way, if you do have something that a principal or something, they want to present on something that doesn't necessarily fall within Jennifer's realm, then yeah, that would make sense.
So we could align it to the language. Let me just look at what that ended up being.
And board members who are liaisons to organizations and things like that can still give reports during that time if they have something. But we don't have to ask every single committee and every single liaison every meeting. It's when you have something, let us know, we'll put it on the agenda.
Correct, and that was the big difference too. Just my experience, the first couple board meetings we've had, we read every board
Yeah.
committee, and if they didn't meet, they say, oh, we didn't meet.
right.
I think that we can be intentional and just put the ones on that want to report. We'll
Yeah.
find a way to get that to Barb and to make sure that
Yeah,
happens.
if there's something going on, then tell us.
The reason I asked about the superintendent reports is because with 2 board members attending the district advisory committees and doing a lot of the work on the board, not work there, and then bringing it to the board for vetting and review and evaluation and additional questions, I didn't know if there would be times when it would dovetail with what you're doing that night and if it should fall under what you're doing that night. But we can always start with it this way too, and if we find we want to
Yeah,
change it. we
we're
can move it.
allowed to treat the format. I just want, I see what you're saying. That makes sense. The other thing that we did was, just so that you know, whenever, I'm just using Gurney tonight, but when we were at Gurney, if that's where we're holding the meeting, then that advisory report usually is connected to that showcase. So the board member could share out what the showcase is for the night. Does that make sense? So
Yes.
it's more like you're introducing or sharing out when you're sharing the showcase. So just something to think about.
So that's a good place for it then. Yeah. Okay.
Anything else about the agenda format that you would like to tweak or talk about? I think the next piece would be the meeting format. So in the meeting we just had, we approved the time and location change.
Want me to review with everyone what?
Yeah, I think that would be good. That was.
So the plan, I think we're all familiar with the plan and excited about embarking on the strategic planning process, engaging more directly with the community and more directly with students, bringing the work that we do more closely aligned to the student education experience. So the first meeting of the month will be a work session like this. We're going to start earlier at 5:30 so that we have more time to work, because those can go long. We'll meet in this conference room regularly. We'll do casual dress and we'll have some sort of boxed dinners or dinners provided. And the agenda of those meetings will be tailored as needed to meet the needs of the district. Was there anything that we talked about in that one, in the work session meeting, that I didn't capture?
I think part of the reason for starting a little earlier is that we have administrators, staff, people who are going to be participating. It's easier for them earlier in the evening to come to those meetings.
True.
And does it present any hardship for a board member to get here by 5:30? Okay. The only, and as far as dinner goes, maybe we have it at request, because I probably
Won't eat.
won't eat dinner.
Okay.
With,
So-
I think we, because I brought that up, of course, being the treasurer. We talked about, that's not something that's gonna be paid for by the district. We're all gonna, like, 1 week you buy, the next week you buy, the next week you buy. That's not on taxpayer dime.
And it could be based on the agenda, how long the agenda
Yeah.
is.
Yeah.
I mean, You
Right.
could be in a work session for
Right.
3 hours, or you could be in a
Right.
work session for 45 minutes, so.
Right. But sometimes when our meetings start going to 10:30, It's nice to have something
Let's
other
just
than
not do
cookies
that.
and coffee.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's just not do that and we're good. No, I just want to say, I'd hate to have food, especially if the district was paying for it, that then, went uneaten.
District
So
is not going to.
we'll work through that. I think there could be a nice team building thing as well to have, something.
Yeah,
And those work sessions are also a great forum for professional development. So if there's something that the board needs to learn or something that we want to refine, that gives us an opportunity to bring guests in and to work as well. So-
And I think switching to having one every month is going to eliminate, hopefully, those 10:30,
The long
11
meeting,
o'clock
right.
meetings. It's gonna be, because we're doing it way more often, so you've got more time, more opportunities to do that work.
We would not plan to vote on things during those meetings.
correct. We won't
No
take any action.
Okay,
There will
just
be
discuss.
nothing on the agenda that would call for a vote. But you bring up a good point, because in the event that something comes up between the two regular meetings that we do need to take action on, we will have to call a special meeting, which historically are quick meetings, and we usually have them at the start of the school day.
We agreed the 7:30.
7:30 start time.
Is the typical start time if we could make it. So
We need a treasure pro tech board for those.
I'm with you.
7:30 is a little early, but okay.
There's no limit on executive session either way, right? We could do that after either meeting if we need to. Okay.
they're all technically.
Regular
Yeah.
meetings.
Work,
yeah.
work session is just a term we're using. It's not an official type of meeting. There's regular meetings that are everything that we've scheduled at the beginning of the meeting or at the beginning of the year. Anything that's not scheduled is then a special meeting. So when we have to call something, and a vote comes up that we have to get done before the next meeting where we're planning on voting, we call a special meeting.
Would somebody get the door? Somebody's trying to get
TJ
in.
behind you.
Thank you.
So this is our structure. We're using this opportunity, the first meeting of the month, to be work only. I don't know that there's any legal difference between this and another meeting. It's just making that commitment so that people don't miss something. If they say, oh, that's the first meeting, they're not going to take any action. We don't want to then decide we're going to take action.
Right.
We want to make sure that that would then get communicated out as a special meeting. Because when we call a special meeting as well, part of the requirement on the public notification is that we state what's going to be, what that meeting is for and what the purpose is. So when we have a special meeting and we put in the public notification, it's for X, we can't get there then at that meeting and decide we want to talk about Y and Z. We are only allowed to talk about X because that's what we told the public that we would discuss.
Okay.
So
And Ashley, those are noticed 24 or 48, I always get confused,
law is 24.
but we try and do more than that.
Yeah, we
but-
try to do, it's once we know,
Yeah.
but sometimes if it's,
Right.
an emergency, then
Okay.
that doesn't happen, but it has to be out 24 hours in advance.
And we got a couple questions about the new dates for meetings going forward, to the degree that we can clarify what the type of meeting is, what will be happening, just with a general statement at the top that might be good too on the website.
Charlene and Mike and I are working, so we'll get the new information up as soon as we can. The meeting dates were done, so they'll be designated, and then like for this meeting, we had sent out or added extra language just to make sure that they know which meetings are public participation, that are
Right,
like
exactly.
regular meetings, and which meetings are just work sessions.
Exactly.
So in what ways do we put that information out? It goes to like newspapers, or it's on the
Is Mike still
website, or
behind me?
how does that get
I don't know which it is.
disseminated?
Where does the postings, how are they posted on what platforms? I know it's the website and social
The
media,
meeting schedule.
but I don't know.
Website, social media, Jill also sent them to newspapers, I believe.
Yeah, there's the PTO chairperson.
So that is
and-
only when we call a special meeting or when we change something about the meeting that was noticed. So once we voted on the schedule, those are now regular meetings. So that was done at the organizational meeting. Those are the regular meetings. We'll send that notification out to the media and to everybody on that list. Those are set. If anything changes, for example, on that schedule, we put location and we said, maybe one meeting is at Gurney and Gurney doesn't have a showcase and, somebody at the middle school really has something they want to talk about and we switch it, that would then, would trigger us to send another public notification out. So anything that is exactly what it was once at the beginning of the year, that notification will go out. Any changes that are not on that schedule, we send out public notification.
And
We-
we probably want to be methodical about signage too, especially with
Yeah.
Carolyn right in the beginning, making sure we put the sign up that,
Yeah, it's gonna take a little bit of getting used to.
Right.
We took advantage of a lot of work sessions when we were planning to build the intermediate school because we needed a lot of time to talk things through and it actually worked very similarly because Catherine was a board liaison to the construction committee and would bring information back and and then the truth of the matter is when we were building the building, we needed to be approving stuff every 2 weeks. And so we really moved, we weren't using work sessions, so we switched back to them all being regular sessions. So I think it's a good time for us to talk about that.
Yeah.
Along those lines, we switched to live streaming, our very popular TV channel on YouTube, in response to COVID, because we were having our virtual meetings virtually, and they are public meetings, and it was the only way for us to share with the community the work we were doing. But since we're going to be moving around the district, that would create a lot of hardship to try and continue to live stream and record. So that's another reason why we are starting that meeting later at 7 o'clock, because we've heard feedback that that's a more accessible time for students and parents. So we're hoping that going to each of the different buildings will engage more people to join us in the meetings and that the time works well.
And that the student participation will
And the
also
student-
have more people turning out for the meetings.
Yeah.
and- Yeah, absolutely.
My guess for the work session meetings is that the language communicated is going to say that these are public because we're switching the cadence of the times. So I'm guessing that when we do that, it'll explicitly state that these are public meetings. I know that that's been concerned in the past.
Absolutely.
So
Yeah, they're all.
All our meetings, whenever we have more than 2 board members, are public.
Right. Notice. And it's only executive session, and for those, there's a very clearly delineated list by law of things that are employment issues that are obviously privacy issues that, right?
And if we had to call a special meeting specifically just for an executive session, if something were to happen, the beginning of that meeting is still public. So if somebody wanted to come and watch roll call, they certainly could. That part would be public, and then we would move into executive session if we had one of those outlined reasons.
Right.
And then at the end of executive session, you exit executive session, go back into public session, that would then be public as well. So, I mean, every meeting we have is
Right.
public. It's just that portion of it is not.
Typically, we try very hard not to take action after an executive session because
People want to leave.
people have left and those can
Right.
go late. and
Yeah, if that were the case, if somebody wanted, if we wanted to take action after an executive session, we would most likely call a special meeting for at least 24 hours later,
Yeah.
so that we could notify everybody that we were taking a roll call,
And we say,
what it's for.
well, and we say before we go into executive session, there'll be no action.
Right.
So we confirm that each time.
So the last piece of letter A is a communication, because I think when you're making these changes, we'll update everything on the website, but we probably will want to put out something as well. So there's just a draft. Really what I'm looking for are missing components so that we can put this together and put it out to our families. So what I just added, if you just kind of follow with me and
Great.
see if there's things. that are
Jennifer, yeah,
missing.
where are you?
On the communication, the third
third
item under
attachment.
A.
It's the attachment under it.
Got it, right here,
Sorry, they're just rough drafts of points.
this one.
It starts
I've been doing that the
2022.
whole night.
Can we take out dinner provided? I just don't want people to think that it's being.
Sure.
It's not
Okay.
But,
It's not
Alright.
provided. We may eat dinner, but it's being provided by ourselves.
so, and these are just the notes from the work session. So I added the first thing, I don't know that you have the live version that I have, but I added after the first paragraph, just a statement. And remember, this will all be tweaked. It's not in a communication format. All board meetings are public meetings. The public is encouraged to attend. So
Yeah.
we can kind of put that before we outline the 2 different types of meetings. So I added that. The first meeting of the month would be a work session. And then it says, The start time's 5:30. They're in the Sands conference room. We'll take out the other line, and then it says the agenda for these meetings will be tailored to reflect the needs of the district. Maybe we can tweak a little bit
I don't know
of
that.
what a work
Oh,
session
no, I didn't. Okay.
is in the first part. I'm just gonna put a note to maybe explain work session, because if it's a new concept.
Well, that's why it's not really, but it might be for people who have just been recently coming to board meetings.
Should we be explicit that there's no public comment in that one? Or is that
Yeah, we
understood?
can. I want it just to be positive as well, so that we're just defining.
Right, because
Fine,
there's
I just,
there are a lot of differences. We don't do the Pledge of Allegiance. Like, it's definitely more of a work environment. It's us sitting at the table working.
right, I'm not sure if everybody knows that though, so they might
That was my concern.
be looking forward
were
to an
just explicit in
opportunity to
language.
address the board at a board meeting, and then it would have come, so.
We can definitely work on that section of information. Okay, so there was at the end of that, this says the board will not take action at these meetings. Maybe this is where maybe we bump this up. Or keep it where and it just recognizes what Ashley talked about, the special meeting. So let me, I'm not sure if that, we'll work on it, but. Okay, but I think that's the context of what we need for the 5:30, the first meeting of the month in this room. And then the second meeting will start this will be a regular meeting. So we might want to notice that specifically.
Can we include the draft template that we're going to be using for those meetings so that people can see what's happening? First, we do the roll call, next we do the Pledge of Allegiance, next we do minutes.
Well,
Just-
let's do a draft template for a work session.
Okay.
And
Right,
then
same
we
thing.
just attach both.
That's a
templates.
good idea.
Then we don't have to get into a
I like that.
definition.
Totally.
Good
that's
job.
great.
So we'll do a draft template for both. I'm just noting it, and then, sorry, the trick with this one, let me put the template here. The trick with this piece is going to be the meeting rotations are gonna be rotating. So I think a couple things need to happen. In the meeting location in this communication, I think we want to reference the website where they can see the list of meeting dates and times, because the only concern I have is that right now when we change location, it's like a big deal, right?
Right.
It's not like we have a board meeting, it's like we have a change of location at a board meeting. If all the meetings are rotating across the district, then we need to make sure people know where to go.
Can we, when we notice in the beginning of the year, all of the meetings, can we notice all of the buildings as the work session, include Sands as the
think it
work
has
sessions
that.
location? Oh,
Yeah,
And
we'll send out the entire schedule,
yeah,
the way it was on the agenda,
okay.
which had location of each meeting and time and all of that.
Will we know that soon? Will we know which school?
It was on what you
It's on-
approved.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
so
I hope.
another thing that would be helpful is signage.
Mhm.
And maybe we have two signs, one as you're coming in the driveway that says the Board of Education meeting tonight is going to be in Sands or whatever. And then another one outside of the room for people who aren't familiar with our buildings. So we might need some panels that could be changed out, right, for Gurney and intermediate school, but
That'd be helpful.
I think that would be really helpful
Yeah.
if people, because not everybody knows all the rooms in the buildings.
Right, until they get used to it.
Right. You know, might be a grandparent, it could be,
Yeah.
you know, someone who's just not in the building,
Right.
so. On the Google Calendar, I think if I was looking for where the board meeting was, that's where I would probably go to first, is for the time and location. If I knew it was that day or that
Mhm.
week.
Is the entire schedule posted somewhere? Because that might be helpful to.
On the
I'm just-
website.
I
Search your website right
Board of
now.
Education on the website. it
Yeah.
is.
Because all the meeting dates will be there. And there was, just so that you know, you may have some confusion because there were no board meetings posted after tonight. And that's only because they weren't approved. So
Right.
now that they're approved, we'll go and we'll get all that.
Can
updated.
we make this document more of a live document? And so link the agenda, like So as we move through the year, link the agenda as well under each.
Mike.
You can get to board, can the public get to board pack to look at the agendas?
Just the post agenda departments on the back.
Okay,
Yeah. the
so they're
PowerPoint.
there.
No, I know, it's just a lot of times people want to, like, it would be nice for parents and students
Mhm.
to have it all in one spot. Like, you want to look and
I
see
have a
what's
really
being
good
talked,
solution.
what's being
And I
talked
bet you know
about.
what I'm gonna say.
What?
Board docs.
Not Board Doc, yeah.
Oh,
It's
wow.
wonderful.
Yeah, so that was gonna be the thing that I forgot there.
Thank you. Yeah, it really would solve all of this. It's great. It's
I agree.
there. We can work on agendas in it, and then the second we're ready to go live, Barb would hit a button, and then it's available to everybody. We would just put a link on the website, probably under board. They would click on that link, it would take them to board docs, and then they could look at the upcoming agenda, they could look at past meetings, they could look at all the
There's
attachments.
some policy in there too. Can you
It's-
get the-
Our policy already is in board docs.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So you have the thing. So could we add that to a work session?
Yeah.
agenda So
Absolutely.
we could learn it as well. And
yeah,
it Doesn't have to be lengthy, but
yeah. I'm telling you, it really would solve and streamline
mhm.
all of this. It's really a great tool and very user friendly.
I think we also need to verify that if someone Googles Chagrin Falls School Board meeting, it takes you to the right place
Mhm,
for
right.
people who aren't familiar with navigating our district website, which is kind of big.
Yeah.
But it's easy to find in
Right.
that basic way.
And if we had something like board docs and had, the agendas and things like there, when we do post on social media and things, we could just put the link directly to board docs right there.
That would be nice. That would be really nice. actually. Because even myself, sometimes I'm like, where am I supposed to be?
I think that could very well happen to me. What building are we at today?
I'm not as worried about the building as I am about the time. I feel like
Yeah.
Yeah.
one of these days you guys are gonna text me at 5:35 and go, where are you?
Where are you?
Just taking notes.
Yep.
And are all the meetings on Wednesday nights except for the one, the February?
Yeah, there was the one in, I think it's one in October, because it was a holiday, so we moved it
Yom
to
Kippur.
Thursday.
Okay, but otherwise it's.
Yeah, if
every-
you take what we approved tonight and just put it in your calendar, that's a good start.
I am just making sure
Yeah.
that, because that was the only
Actually,
one I
would
remember
Barb
moving
send
over.
Barb could send us all calendar links. That would be great. That reinforce where it is, and
Mhm.
that would be really helpful.
Then if there's a change, you
You
can.
can change the calendar. Yep.
I was gonna say something based on that. What did you just ask? The dates.
If they were all Wednesday nights.
Yes, so that's something that changed a year or two ago, 4 years ago. At one point, we were having them on Monday nights, but we really found that it worked better for the administration, and I'd love to hear you weigh in on this, to have a couple of days at the start of the week to then, so that we could get the information by latest like Monday, as opposed to like trying to pull things together by the end of the week. So we moved things to Wednesday, and which has worked really well for the board. I'd be interested in how it's been working for both, how it will work. for
I
both
had
of you.
Monday meetings in my previous district and I much prefer the Wednesdays. but
Yeah.
That's just,
You're
It's
good.
nice because if there's,
For
a
that
draft-
reason.
if there's a
I
draft
know.
agenda ready on Friday, it gives us a chance to look at it over the weekend and then get questions to you a couple of days prior to the meeting. I think that was one of the main reasons we were running up against meetings on Monday, and if board members had questions, it was really compressed. So, I mean, we voted on it, so we have our schedule, but
Yeah, I know.
obviously, if that's something that becomes a hardship for anybody, we could talk about changing it for.
yeah.
And
And
if
on
there's-
the calendar that you approved tonight, the few meetings that are not on Wednesdays specifically state the day of the week.
Right.
So the February 5th work session that we have, and then October 6th, it says Thursday, October 6th. So that it just calls it out so that people are aware of it.
The only other piece that we had on the communication, which I know you talked about tonight, we talked about at the work session though, was just the piece that in response to COVID, the board switched to virtual live streamed meetings in March of 2020. We're back to in-person meetings and seeking to engage more directly with the community. We have adjusted the regular meetings to be more accessible to parents and students and are discontinuing the practice of streaming and recording. So I just want to make sure that that's what we still want to communicate.
Yeah, but that it's redundant because I had the seeking to engage is in the opening paragraph too.
Okay.
So
We can,
I think just more, the second time you mention it can just be more tactical.
okay. I just want to make sure that that's what the goal is, so that when we put
Could
it
you
out.
add something about, we invite the community to join us in these in-person meetings? And of course, then I guess the other question would be, but what if I can't attend? If you're interested in the content, we could link to the minutes then somehow, or just remind them that there are meeting minutes that are taken if we have to miss a meeting that has a topic you're interested in.
And they're all posted on the website.
Yeah, I think having access to an agenda ahead of time and being able to even see attachments and things like that would help with that too. People can just go and look at it. They'll see
Right.
exactly what it is that you're doing. Now they wouldn't hear, every comment that every person made, but all of the business of the board would be
Right,
right there.
anything we vote on.
Yeah, I
Everyone's
always
gonna
find
be
it-
busy.
I know you
Okay.
said you look at the board calendar. I always found the best place to look is the Board of Education tab on the website under district.
Mhm.
That's where all the agendas are. That's where the policy documents are. That's where the governance docs, once we
Right,
get those updated, they're still there, but will be, linked and updated. That's where all of the agenda items are, so.
right. Well, and Ashley said board doc will take care of a
Yeah.
lot of that and make it more
Yeah.
streamlined, because it's good to have redundancy.
Oh,
'Cause you don't know
absolutely.
where people think to look for something.
Yeah,
I'm
for
gonna
whatever
take
reason-
down the board governance document
Yes,
because
that's
it's
what I was
not
saying.
current.
So it's,
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
I do think if we're gonna take it down, then we should post that new participation language someplace else in the interim.
Say that one more time.
That's where the actual language that we read is for board participation, and if we're gonna pull it down in the short term to update the vision and the mission and that language, I think we wanna make sure we're posting.
well, it'll be on the first agenda.
Okay.
But we could even have, you could have something like where it has board policy, it could say public participation that just links to a new page. That says when you can participate and what the guidelines
Yeah.
are.
Under policy?
Just on the board page.
Oh, yeah,
So
just
it
a side
could
tab,
be
sure,
A
sure.
new page of one paragraph that will say, it's a regular meetings, which are the second meeting of the month.
Right.
Here's the schedule, and then the language.
Just so it's somewhere, so if we
Yeah.
pull governance down,
So people understand.
people can find it.
The other thing.
I don't know that people would have gone to the governance manual to find that anyway.
Yeah, it took me a while to find it,
Oh,
so.
yeah.
Might want to discuss, but we can get there, is replacing it with the work that we do on the code of conduct tonight, possibly.
Right, when we,
We can talk about it when we're there, but I don't want to forget to mention it.
okay, so anything else for letter A? And the only thing that Sharon said, if you didn't hear, was that the governance document is going to be redone because we're working on the vision, the beliefs, and the mission. And so that will all, I think the governance document will be different, but we will still probably have a title, right? And post it so it's accessible for everyone. But it's just not finished yet, so. But letter A, was there any piece that we missed or failed to discuss? So the next section is about the committee structure. And you voted on what would have been basically the assignment, which is the second link or the second one that says assignments. And what we did was we organized everything by the groupings that you had shared on how to reorganize. So the first one is the, and this, if it's okay, what I'd like to do is just talk through maybe what you would, who would like to participate
Yeah, I'm sorry, Jennifer, I'm not finding this link.
This one is it says assignments. It's
Hold
the
on, is it
second.
Under,
The first one is committee structure, and you can.
Board participation on committees.
okay, so.
Oh, you're looking at
The grid.
Board participation on committees?
See,
Okay.
The
No.
grid is what
We're
we
not.
basically approved in
Mhm.
4A.
Right.
and B, or 4A. So that I think is the best thing to work off of. If you need to kind of know what that committee is or what it does, that's the committee structure. And that committee structure document will evolve into a communication that we can post on the website. So if you go to the website right now, there's very detailed information for each committee and how it works. So this will be updated to align with what you approved tonight. So I'm looking at the mine's called assignments. Yours is called board participation. And we at least got through grouping everything to approve the committees on the 19th. I think it would be reasonable to take action just to make sure that, and I'm not sure that we need to, but maybe we want to reaffirm or publicize who's on what committees, just so that piece
I
is.
think it's,
I don't know that I would vote on it. Maybe just put it in either a board report or a superintendent's report. I don't think it needs
To make sure people have access.
It's not board action. Something you need to vote on.
So with those documents, would you like to work through placing people where they may have interest or talking about what the different committees are?
tonight, let's go through them and talk about what they are and understand. I mean, I would like to leave here tonight, if possible, knowing who is going to serve in what capacity. But I think it's important to go through them and understand where everyone is and where they would like to contribute. But also, some of these are, like, they vary annually, but some of these are heavy lifting this year.
Right.
And some of them are not. So when I looked at it today, I basically identified 5 that are heavy lifting, and we can have up to 2 on each. So if we all think in terms of doing 1 or 2 of the larger committees, and then there are 4 others that, well, they're newer, so I'm assuming they're not as much, but that might not be the case. But let's go through it.
Can you just tell us your 5?
Sure.
We can
So,
start then.
okay, we'll start with the board records committee, because that's the easiest, because by law, that needs to be the board president. So,
That committee is the 3 of us.
right, okay, so that one's taken care of. And then I spent a lot of time with this after Saturday, because I think made a lot of progress in talking about what we wanted to achieve and how we wanted to work together, and really building individual expertise of each of us so that everybody is an equal leader at the table. So what I was trying to do is, we have support organizations that parallel the needs of some of these committees. And there's one district liaison. So there's going to be a district liaison to each of the buildings. And then there's one district liaison that is a liaison to the district leadership team, as well as the inner council, which tends to be this district support organizations. But the support organizations, that's a huge opportunity for us in order to bridge to the community and to communicate and to attend their meetings and share updates with the board. And so it's really helpful to have more than one person doing that. And because we want to develop expertise, I wanted to group them where they made sense. So for example, the Business Advisory Council is also required by law. But that would be served by the same person or people who are on the Finance, Budget, and Audit Committee. So the chair for that committee is Ashley, and that person would also be a liaison to the Chagrin Valley Chamber of Commerce. So that's one of the heavier responsibilities. And the purpose of the Finance, Budget, and Audit Committee, I don't want to just read from it. Do you want to just give a quick?
The chair is sitting.
Oh, yeah.
So this one is a little bit different than in the past, because in the past we had finance committee and then we had an audit committee. And the audit committee sort of became sort of just a committee in name. They only met maybe at the beginning of the audit sometimes, and then once at the end of the audit, just to review the audit results. So we thought it would make the most sense to combine the finance committee and the budget committee. The finance committee are the people who really, dig into the numbers and know what's happening. And the audit then takes the numbers one step further and discusses internal controls and compliance. So it makes sense to kind of streamline those two and use the expertise of the financial people in the community.
There's already
So-
overlap in membership as well.
Yes,
from the
yes, that's
community
true.
side. So Ashley, as far as about quarterly with maybe a meeting or two extra for the audit piece of it.
I would say
So
quarterly
maybe
is-
6 times a year.
Yeah, maybe.
Okay.
I don't know that meeting at the beginning of the audit
Mm-hmm.
anymore would make sense. Sometimes when that was a separate committee, it made sense because you kind of wanted to know what was on the horizon and what's going on. But if you're on the finance committee, you've been coming to meetings all year, you already know what's going on. I don't know that the beginning of the audit's going to be worth your time.
So maybe 5.
Yeah, and then the audit meeting with the audit committee is a meeting that's actually called by the auditors. So it's really their meeting. So it has, some different, I don't run that meeting. And sometimes even in a lot of districts, they will actually ask the treasurer to step out so that they can get a really candid conversation about the job that they think that I'm doing. So that's really more just kind of, it's their meeting. So it just makes sense to kind of just throw that in with the finance committee, because those are the people who really know what's going on anyway.
And I think it makes sense for the vice president, because typically they liaison to the treasurer to serve in that capacity. But I also wanted to say, I know coming to this, people are excited about different things and may or may not feel that like they're ready to take on being on the finance, budget and audit committee, but Ashley
It's really easy.
is
Yeah.
Ashley is brilliant to work with. So I wouldn't have that hesitation if I think it's a good thing to get up to speed on. One of the biggest benefits of it is they really go through the 5-year forecast budgeting process line by line by line. So it's very helpful in getting an understanding of what's happening in the district. And so it will all come back to here, so.
Yeah, I am. Do you want to go through, do you guys want to go through all of them first and then go back, or do you want to? It doesn't matter to me.
I think should let people put their names in and then we can go back
Okay.
and see, like, we may need to reorganize
Okay.
because you may overcommit. If you're
Yeah.
like me, you might end up going, wait, I can't be on all of these committees. So, but if
Right.
you have an interest, let's capture that while we're talking about it. So
So-
if Lori's interested,
Sure.
that's great.
Jennifer, do you have it in an editable format?
I have it in my Google Doc. I'm putting them in. Do you want, it's shared with you.
Does anybody
It's
else
called
have?
Save
I just was
any-
making sure somebody was updating it as we talked.
No pressure, just trying to make sure everybody's included. Okay.
So is
Capital-
Catherine interested? 'Cause I
Well,
don't
we'll
put
come
it down.
back and get the second. So we definitely have
Okay, I just
Lori,
wanted to make sure.
but I think we should have
Nobody was
2.
chomping at the bit. They don't know how great.
I mean, I'm
actually
happy,
is.
I'm happy to do it. I just want to make sure
Yeah,
there's
let's see where
balance,
we
there's a
end up.
balance for me, yeah. Okay, capital planning,
I'm pretty interested in.
I am too.
okay.
Do we have a chair for that?
I was thinking that it probably should be Chris Wolfter. I just didn't put it in the
Okay,
document.
he's pretty much been setting the agenda and running the meeting, so I don't think he would have any issue with the budget.
So this is one thing that we're going to get to, but the strategic planning committee will definitely have subcommittees that do a lot of work that come out of it, but it will come out of the process. So I can't say with certainty what those will look like, but I would imagine that the strategic planning process will lead to proposed facility improvements. And so there'll be some overlap between the capital planning committee and then if there's a facilities task force within the strategic planning committee. So there'll be a lot of us working together in different groups as well. But if you are both interested in that,
Well, capital planning was you two before, right? Are there benefits to continuity there?
No, I think it's a highly functioning committee that is it's very well run. I don't think there'll be any issues with. Now, I could attend and not participate. Like if it was needed at any point, I could attend and not participate, right?
We have to, then we'd have to do it as a special board.
Even if I
That's
did,
board.
even if I just go to listen,
You can't have 3 board members at a
I
meeting.
thought it was, okay,
Yeah, if there are 3 of you discussing board business, and then it
no,
has to
not
be public.
discussing.
Okay.
But anyway, we
Yeah,
we
well-
probably won't need to do that. I don't think there'll be a problem with it. I can spend some time with you guys if we're transitioning and kind of bring you up to speed. And the other thing is, because of the way we're doing work sessions now, I think we're going to be having a lot more discussion as a board about things that are happening in these advisory committees. So you would have an opportunity to bring things up to those of us that have been on that committee in the past. So I don't know if that answers your question, but I don't think it would be a problem at all to transition to 2 new people.
it's actually not a bad, it's a good time, I think, too, because we've decided to do the bus garage and we've allocated the budgeting for it, but we really haven't, I mean, the process has started enough that you can get up to speed easily and then take it through building stage.
And we can have Chris Wifter come to these meetings
Right.
as well, so
Yes.
there'll be that continuity too if he's running that committee.
Okay. Policy committee. The policy is, I don't know, 600 pages of legal documents that it makes fascinating bedtime reading. It's basically everything that, all the operating procedures for the district and that designate the work of the superintendent and the treasurer and also the board. It's really an interesting committee because policy is constantly changing, and basically what happens is we get updates from people who help us with our policy and legal, proposed legal changes. We weigh in on them on whether or not the wording is appropriate for the district or if it needs to be changed from that, and our lawyer gets involved with that. But you'll be very aware of the work of the district from participating on the policy committee. That, were you on policy last?
It was Mary King.
Are you interested in continuing on policy?
Sure.
I think it would be good to have.
Yeah, it's interesting and it flows. It's not just those documents, then you have to flow all those documents through the manuals and the final forms and the,
That's what Jennifer has to do.
Yeah,
Well,
I
and
know,
it's-
there's
they
no
cross
chair
that.
listed, just so you know, right now.
Right, so,
What is the
Good
work
one.
commitment for that? Because I have an interest in policy, but I'm not sure
It's, we're
the
really,
time commitment.
we're really trying to not make it the same level of time commitment it was last year because the process that we used in doing the updating, I think is somewhat antiquated. I don't think we need to go through, I don't think we were leveraging technology. I mean, you have to read a lot. But as far as going through and doing the redlining and doing those kinds of things, I mean, that really, we use an entity that does, we get these presentations, you have to read what they, having made the mistake of reading a 2,000-page bill, not understanding that I would get this, so don't do that. So it's a lot of reading, but it's not a lot of editing or that kind of work.
So I would say it's quarterly. You could expect a quarterly meeting that's about 2 hours. And the prep for that could be 5 to 10 hours a quarter, maybe the more on the 5-hour side, if that gives you a better sense of. We have had those meetings during the day. That might be a consideration as well, especially Jennifer, if you're thinking of having other staff attend. So that might be an important factor for someone considering whether they can do that.
From early in the morning.
Yeah, I think depending on what policy it is that we need to change,
Right.
I think we would then make that determination on, maybe we need the high school principal for something because it's discussing something that really only affects the high school.
But they have typically been in the daytime, not the nighttime. Just so we're aware.
and they probably will continue to be because I think the proposal is to, in the past, we gathered feedback. Bob would gather feedback via a Excel spreadsheet that the principals would contribute their perspective on something, but I think that we're moving more towards a discussion with them so we understand and what's really happening. So I imagine it will be during the day because we want to make the best use of their time.
And a lot of times there's really no discussion to be had on some of them. It's a required policy.
Right.
Lawyer says you have to do it. Ohio Revised Code says you have to have it.
Well, and you can really
Um,
sort of tell how much is going to be in the pipeline by how busy the legislature is, because it's
Right.
driven by, like when these new House bills, they're fighting over this, and you know that whatever comes out of that bill is going to get flown through the policy so that we're compliant with state law. And so sometimes it's a lot and sometimes it's not very much.
And sometimes it's just about looking at a policy that might not be working for the district. So there are also times where you're going to want, something happens, you follow board policy and you're thinking, this seems a little outdated and not really applicable to us. So then we can sit down and we can work through it. Typically, when we do those things, we would have it run through the attorney or through OSBA as well to make sure that we're not changing anything that we're not allowed to change, but it can be refinements as well.
So if there's something that, if I were on this committee that I identified as problematic in the language or something, we would have the ability to then discuss at the quarterly
Right.
to amend or adjust. Okay.
Yeah, and truthfully, the reading work that you do anyway.
Sure.
Because we all approve the policies and it will all come back here. So we all read the markup, so really the additional work of being on the committee is the meeting time.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it
just
is
add-
interesting. It's
Yeah.
just dry.
We've occasionally added new policies. I remember crowdfunding was one where we were one of the first districts in the state to add a crowdfunding policy. So we kind of worked with our consultant to write that and develop it so that it worked, for our district. So it's, it is the core of the work of the school board.
Mhm.
So it's a good thing to have. But be forewarned, it's also good to have some continuity on that, because that's where that institutional memory can be important to understand why something was changed and that kind of thing too. So.
Sure.
So you're stuck, is what she said.
Yeah. No, that's
Not
great.
necessarily, but so like next year, one of you could step off,
Yeah.
but one of you should probably stay on.
Right.
Okay.
How frequent are the capital planning meetings? We didn't address that. Are they quarterly also?
They're also quarterly.
Okay, healthcare, the healthcare committee really meets to, well, I'll allow you to speak to it.
That one does not meet as often. And it's not a huge commitment. Really, the work is done by administration and by our healthcare consultants. They'll bring the information to the committee. We have, the two board members, myself, Jennifer, will have representation from each of the associations, just discussing if there's any changes to coverage or, last year when we went through switching to a self-insured model that went through that committee. Pretty much a well-oiled machine at this point, especially since we've made the switch over to self-insurance. It's there, it's already done. So
I think the reason it's important to the board is that it is a big part of our expenditures,
Very
the
large.
employee benefit package. And it is a big part of our relationship with our staff, or
absolutely.
the type of benefits that we provide and education about those benefits and things like that.
There's representation from the union there too. There's a lot of staff participation. So that's something I wanted to ask Jennifer. So historically, one of the people on the healthcare committee has typically been a board participant in the negotiations, because so much of what we've been doing in the last few negotiations has been healthcare based. I didn't want to make that a requirement because I didn't want anyone who didn't feel like they were ready to be the negotiation rep to not feel like they could do the healthcare committee, but I didn't know if you think it should be someone who's.
If someone's been a union rep before and has that type of experience, is that helpful in this case?
I would say knowledge of health insurance and benefits and group benefits is helpful. I don't know that at this point that it's necessary for that person to be on the negotiating team, or the liaison to the negotiating team. You did so much work on the healthcare. We're pretty much set. I don't know that there are a whole lot of changes to be, to strive for.
Do you think consistency is important there?
I think it is only because there are a lot of things that you really need to understand, and it does take up time for the consultants to train new people. So, but there is consistency among the association representation. A lot of those people have been on that committee for a very long time and have a really thorough understanding of our benefits and our structure. As far as board representation, I think it would be nice for somebody who understands it.
So it was Mary Kay and I'm happy to continue, but it would be good to maybe.
I can do it. My MBA is in healthcare, so kind of.
And you've been on it.
I've been on
before,
it before, unless you're interested, Robert. Okay.
So it's two, it can be two, right?
Right.
So is it?
Yeah.
So is it the two of you?
Catherine and
It could be,
Robert,
or if you're interested, it could.
No, I'm just, because
Yeah.
Robert was interested, I'm
Yeah.
just trying to clarify.
I was just
Which
asking
two?
some questions.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's Sharon and, I just want to write just Sharon and Catherine.
Who am I putting the X for?
Well,
Catherine's X is there.
You're in draft format. I think you're putting Sharon and me.
yeah,
I didn't say in.
Not in permanent ink.
Right, I
but-
just don't want to not
Yeah.
reflect what.
don't go get a tattoo. Strategic planning. Again, there's going to be subcommittees for that. That is going to be a big effort this year, a very rewarding effort. It's going to be highly collaborative with all the aspects of our community. There'll be student engagement. And it's really setting the vision for the district for the next 3 to 5 years. So
And is this a 1 year, I mean, is this a 2-year commitment? When is it going to start? Is this something we think we're going to finish, or is this something that will carry through?
The strategic planning process or the board committees?
the
The
board
strategic-
committee
the
is a
board
year.
committee, you're Right.
Every year we.
No, I
reassess.
understand, but if you're,
So the strategic
as far as
planning
retaining knowledge.
outline that we're working on, and Mike is actually helping me, and we continue to interview some people that could provide service to help us through the process. So we are currently completing the listen learn through a survey to gather some qualitative data to say, where do we want to make some focus groups or deeper learning prior to the strategic planning process. That breakdown should happen the end of January, so we're hoping to get all those interviews done. And then round 2, we'll be able to put together some focus groups around specific topics that we think the strategic plan will focus on. And we'll go through that process. I'm hoping that process would take us till June.
Okay.
And then in June, I think we need to sit down with those focus areas and start putting together a plan. So what's the short term? What do we want to accomplish in goals this year as a district? What do we want to accomplish in 3 years, 5 years, however comfortable you are with strategic planning, if it's a 3-year plan or a 5-year plan. So we would go through that. I don't want to say it's due on a date, because if you do that, it doesn't work because COVID happens or something happens. Right. So we could be done by August. I mean,
Okay.
depending on how the pre-work goes, and understand that the district had done strategic planning prior to COVID, but never finished. So there are a lot of components that we need to review, like the history and work through, because I think there was good work that was done that should be drawn into a new plan. But does that make it go faster? Does that make it go slower because we have to do the review process? But I would love to, by at least January 1, be able to say, this is the strategic plan.
Okay.
I
my
would
question
like
was
to
really
be
just-
involved in the strategic planning process. I'm just gonna put that out there. I nominate myself. But there's, if there's more than 2 of us that are interested, then we should talk about it.
I'm interested also.
You are. Anyone else? All right. I like that because
Different mix.
and the ages of your children in the buildings. I think that's very helpful. Technology Committee, which has not met in the past.
We met last year.
Can you give us a quick, because I think. it was-
Sorry, I didn't,
Sure.
if that's true, I apologize, Mike. I didn't, okay.
It was Phil who was actually on the committee last year.
Okay.
Ah,
In March of last year, we reviewed the 3-year technology plan.
Okay.
We actually added some new community members last year, so we had a Zoom meeting in mid-March, kind of go through the plan for the next 3 years. Typically, we meet kind of, it used to be two times a year, and COVID, we kind of that dropped a little bit, but one time.
And there'll probably be a technology subcommittee on strategic planning or some element of that would be a natural. Who are the community members? Not to put you on the spot, but do you remember?
Katie Pollock. A new parent at Gurney, Katie, somebody else I can't think of.
Okay.
I don't know.
That's okay. I didn't mean to put you on the spot. So, okay.
That's one of the lighter tasks though, because there's participation from the board perspective. There's participation from the board in the meetings, but there's not as much work time allocated from the board. So who's interested? It's like embarrassing having him in the room.
Somebody be there.
Now I feel like you're like picking it for the softball team, right? Yeah.
Somebody raise their hand.
Oh, I'm happy to do that.
Thank you. Anyone else? Again, I'm happy to do any of them. I'm just waiting to see where we have openings based on people's real interest, initial interest.
Is CFA alumni?
Yes.
association?
Okay, we'll come back to that second one then. Athletics, Charlie Barch will be the chair of that committee. And Jennifer, we haven't had an athletics committee in the past, so can you speak a little bit about what
Let
you're
me
hoping
pull
for
up
that
the
to do?
folder.
Yeah.
We are working on developing it right now. So Phil Rankin was the one that approached me and said, I know you did this in the previous district. Could we look at what that might look like to support Charlie in the athletic program? So I'm trying to find the purpose. So some of our draft goals that we talked about was supporting the athletic director. This organization, once some membership is established, would define vision, mission, and goals for athletic programming. They would work to expand our parent and alumni network within the community to utilize resources to support athletics. They would support accurate communications about programming. They would help provide feedback and serve as a sounding board for athletic programming. And they would help with the branding and trademarking. What that means is that your tiger and some different things are branded. And sometimes we get requests to use that, and Charlie oversees all of that. So just looking over the policies or making recommendations and helping support. So that's where we're at. We will, the meeting for this is in the end of January, where Charlie, Phil, Monica Asher, the high school principal, myself will sit down again because we haven't formed. We're still in the formation process, but that's kind of our goal.
So I'm really excited about that because you definitely identified a gap in the work of the board. Not having had that in the past.
I didn't know if you mentioned the advertising. Did she mention that?
I think that was under the. kind of
brand.
under the
It kind of
branding.
does, but like, you know, if someone's gonna make a donation or they want to have a billboard, we have board policy around advertising on grounds, or if somebody wants to name the stadium after somebody, I think that might go potentially to the athletics committee. Certainly, entities that want to make donations to our athletics programs and get some type of reciprocity. I would think that would come. I know Charlie's handled those kinds of requests in the past.
And as an example, that's in policy, like the dollar amount and what the cutoff is.
Some of it is, but it's
Yeah.
an area that's been fluid.
Right, right.
Yeah.
We have limits, like I remember there's a $2,000 cutoff, and when do we go beyond, when do we, so some of that flows through policy. Is Jen for Title IX, would that be somebody who should be part of that committee? Jen Benko, or is Charlie also a Title IX?
He's Title IX.
Oh, he's still, okay.
I'd be happy to be on that committee.
Sorry, I had to get back.
Anyone else want to be penciled in? Some of these don't need to,
And
too,
we
so we'll
haven't
come
always
back.
had to.
Yeah,
Sometimes we've
right.
had-
I know, I'm just like, I figured we'd go back through.
Yeah,
The
Okay,
nice thing with your new structure is also this, if we're having a meeting and let's say you're on athletics and you're not able to attend, you could call, or we could call Catherine and say, Catherine, will you just sit in on this meeting and be the board representative? I can't be there. So there's a lot of ability to interchange. Or if there's not a true second person, sometimes you'll see a topic where you might be really an expert in. So for example, one of the topics that we did, not in a committee structure, but was when we had the high numbers at swimming. And we wanted to look at that third coach. We had a lot of conversations and a lot of different settings, right?
yeah,
But there wasn't an organized mechanism to have the conversation about how do we look at an assistant coach for swimming and how does that work? Well, if we were talking about assistant swimming and you're on, and there may be others at the table, but I know Lori is involved in swimming too. So we might involve Lori as a second
Yeah.
person into that conversation.
Okay.
So it gives you some flexibility.
sounds good. Curriculum and instruction is a committee I've been asking to create for 6 years, and I am so excited about the formation of this committee.
And we have, this would be brand new. So what I would ask is that once we get the board members in place, that we would do some of that pre-work like we did with Phil and Charlie and Monica. There'd be different people involved in this, but to start setting goals and establishing what it would be. Because I think it's important that we create it together.
Yeah, I'd be interested in curriculum.
I am too. Are we all interested in curriculum? I mean, that's a good thing, being on the school board, right?
Yeah.
I would like to be involved. So I would like to be involved because setting up the committee, I think in the time that I've been on the board, I've seen a lot of areas where the district could benefit from that, and I can contribute that. And then I do think, because things kind of tend to all come together at the high school level, it would be helpful to have Lori and I started off the first year, because she's basically finishing up with a high schooler, and I've had one go through and is one in the process. But again, it's an area that's going to overlap greatly with strategic planning, so there'll be lots of room for additional involvement in that as well. You okay with that?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Sure.
All right, and safety committee.
This will, technically we have it, but technically you did, I mean,
Yeah,
we have one, but I don't know what the board's participation in that has been. So
It
I'd just
hasn't
like
been.
to expand that work, and Amanda Rossi, who's the assistant principal at the high school, is the one that leads this committee as well. It's kind of co-led with Chris Lifter as well because of the facilities aspects. So I already checked Catherine. Is there anyone else I need to check?
Didn't even ask.
You saw the pitch.
I would be very interested. I already got an email from him about the bus safety. I'm so
Yeah.
excited about that. So good, happy.
thank you.
Have we ever considered having student involvement on the safety committee? Like, I know that there's some issues that are not, I just am always amazed by how informed and knowledgeable the students are when something happens, or how much they anticipate certain things, but they don't have a venue to necessarily communicate it. I'm wondering if it would be, I'm just a thought. like
And
maybe-
there are lots of, most of these committees, we had students on, but I think what I want to start with is doing some focus groups with students for being an advocate and offering advice in areas. So my idea was, for example, to put a group of students, we had talked about this, that we're interested in the capital planning, right? To talk about the courtyard spaces and how that would work. I think to start to engage students, we could open it up. And I think safety, the best changes that we made to our safety plan at our high school was done by the Superintendent Advisory Council, the students.
Okay,
They said, this is where I'm scared. This is what I
Exactly.
don't know. This is what I'd like to see. This is, and they even came up with the idea.
Yeah.
So it was brilliant. But I think if it's okay this year, maybe I'm meeting with Josh Rooney. I think he's the senior class president. So we're going to talk about establishing a superintendent advisory committee. And my hope is then each one of those would lead another group of students, because that way we're webbing out to more input.
That's great. And does that also encompass buses, bus safety? Okay.
And the email that Catherine's referring to was looking at additional cameras
I
for the
remember from the
outside.
beginning of the year,
So-
yeah.
All right, moving along to the district liaisons. I don't want to go through one by one because I think it'd be better to have a collaborative conversation around, maybe just taking like, I'll start and say what I'd be interested in serving on, and then, but don't let that prevent you from saying it if you were as well, and then we'll work through it from there. So I think as president, it would be good for me to be the DLT and intercouncil person as well. So I put myself there, but I actually am also excited to be in any of the buildings too, so. Well, let's go this way.
I'd love to be in any of the buildings.
You would, okay.
Yeah.
Which one?
I have kids in 3 of them, and then the
Any
other one I
building?
don't know much
Okay.
about, so I'm happy for any of those.
I kind of go back and forth because I feel like with high schools, I have a tremendous amount of experience, but I don't have a ton of experience in elementary. So I almost want to put myself there
Mhm.
where I don't have experience so that I can gain that knowledge. Those would be my two,
Okay,
if pressed.
Yeah, I have the same thought. Like, I'm very comfortable with the high school because that's where my kids have been most recently, and I've spent the most time at the high school. I think I have probably the most knowledge of the high school, but if there's some place where you'd rather, I mean, I'm fine with any of the buildings.
all right, Catherine.
I'll do anything, but sounds like intermediate school is open for grabs, so.
Okay, so
That
Lauren,
makes
would you do
sense.
middle? Catherine will do intermediate. Robert, you do Gurney?
Or middle school too, right? Yeah. Intermediate's fine.
Okay, so I'm
So,
gonna,
hold
I'm
on,
good.
yeah,
I'm good.
okay,
I just
wait,
didn't,
hold on. Would you prefer, what did I say?
Robert would do
Robert did
Gurney.
Gurney.
Your
So I'm
preference
putting
is
an
Gurney, because I
X.
really am.
And I'm gonna
Whatever
have a
you
kid
say.
there in August, so.
Okay, yeah, so whatever you want.
Intermediate school is Catherine.
Lauren would be middle,
Mhm.
and then Lori would be high school?
Do you want high school?
Is that?
Or
what-
you're
No,
doing the
I'll
district?
do the
Okay.
DLT.
Okay,
Lauren
yeah,
will be
that's fine.
middle.
Is that what I said?
Yeah.
Okay.
But I'm also happy to do, if somebody else wants to do the high school, I'm happy to do it. Really fine. Okay.
So real quick, maybe real quick if I can find it. Today I put together dates of when we'll do our first walkthroughs, but understand I'm gonna take you on a walkthrough of the entire district.
Okay.
Because I want to show you everything from the bus garage to the buildings to, and so I've worked on that schedule, but I just wanted to give you some dates to look at so that when you see the information come out, you can start to look. I can take 2 board members per trip, if that makes sense. So we can go separate individually or together. I right now have blocked off the 7th, 8th, 9th,
February,
and 11th of February.
7th, 8th,
Same as a
9th,
Friday.
11th.
And then I blocked off, because we live in Northeast Ohio, the 23rd and 24th, in case something goes wrong. I will tell you that the most powerful moments for you to be in a building is when there are children. So when you can get in the classroom, when you can see, when we can be involved, it will change your life. And I think you'll love this work, and that we can schedule as needed, but I really just want to take you on a tour. This is an amazing place, and make sure that you have the experiences and can see what I've seen so far. And I get to see more, so I get to go 5 times or however many times you decide, so.
So we will be butting up against district swimming sectionals and states. So if I could go on the 7th, that would be great.
And
you
I
may wanna do the
have
same.
hopefully the same issue.
Yeah, and you can think it through. That would be a great day, and I'm working on, I have an early start kind of schedule, and I have a little later in the morning kind of schedule in case you have to get kids off to school, so I'm working on all that detail, but yeah, I think that's great. If you want to pick now, you can. If not, we can
You can pencil me for the 11th,
The 11th.
if that's a Friday.
Is this,
7th is a Monday.
has she released the date? She hasn't released the date yet. We just know it's one of those.
No,
three
but they've
days.
never been on Mondays. They're usually. towards
They're
the end of
usually
the
like
week.
Wednesday, Thursday, Friday.
Right.
Okay. We never know. And then it's the
I
last
mean,
day.
we can,
And if we, you know what, if we have to change a date, it's not a big
Okay.
deal. I looked at my schedule and February was pretty open. So I just wanted to block off some days. So Lori and Bendall are on Monday. Instead of Lori and Shan. And then you said the 11th, Robert.
I could do 9th or the 11th. Would you rather I go with Robert?
Sure, it's up to you. Would you like to go together on Friday?
Sure, that's great.
I have to go by myself.
No, somebody gets to go twice. He
I'll
wants
go
to
with
go
you
twice.
again. I'll be happy to go with you again.
Is there-
Except I can't.
Unless like
No, it's
maybe
just one
8th,
day,
maybe.
yeah.
Oh, we could look up
Can I tag
Sunday.
along for one of those?
No,
You don't need
no,
to- you can go to
it's
all.
only if,
Ashley will go
One's
with
good.
me.
I have to bail if for some reason Jackson.
So Ashley.
Otherwise,
I'm good. I just
Catherine,
have
Sure.
crossing guard stuff that we can work around.
Do you like
Which
8th
one are you
and
looking at?
9th?
Maybe Tuesday, the
8th?
8th.
And I'll give you some, like I said, I'm working out with the principals and it's because I'm going so many days in a row, I want to go to buildings at different times. So we get to see, I get to see different things. So we can work through that together, but I'll put that out to you on Friday. That's great. All that. Okay, so that's the liaison part.
And then, oh, I was just gonna have Ashley to speak to what those two do. Okay, the student, actually Catherine, you can probably, can you help
Achievement?
us? The student achievement liaison to the OSBA and the legislative liaison. We have to
So-
appoint them, but
Yeah, we have to have them, but I will say, I don't know that we have leveraged these
no.
as well as some other districts have. And certainly the legislative, I mean, we all are gonna get emails about legislative updates. Policy is gonna be paying the most attention to those, but, I have talked at previous board meetings about, are we serving our community to the greatest extent we can by making sure we're having some discussions about things that could impact our district. And so the legislative liaison could be someone who would report out to the board when appropriate. I'm just putting this forward because this isn't something we've decided as a board. It's just something to consider. That, hey, there's, House Bill 327, they're calling for testimony this week, making sure that we're all very well informed of things that could impact our district, but also making sure our community is aware there's a runway of information before something becomes a law, that we're making sure people know about that. So it could be that what it has traditionally been is just the person who makes sure that they're staying up to date on legislative issues. If we did have like a letter writing campaign or something like that, they would get involved with the superintendent and helping, with that. But it's been a very light responsibility. Now, student achievement is the thing that we are most responsible for as a school board. Again, it has been, I think a very light position of just making sure that we're aware of information coming from the Ohio School Board Association, but actually add anything if you want, but I don't think we've leveraged these two assignments to the degree that we could.
I've seen in the past student or the legislative liaison sort of report out at a board
Right.
meeting of the things that are coming down the pike.
Right.
I think you all get the emails, but just so that everyone is aware, or maybe you missed something, or maybe you hadn't thought about how it would affect us. Because a lot of times there's tons of stuff in those OSBA emails that have no bearing on our district. But it's
And I
nice to know which ones would affect us.
Whoever wants to do that, the Capital Bar Journal is really a good resource, and it has an education tab. And you can look and track, what's current, what's coming out, and it's a different, it's a different political viewpoint, maybe. I mean, it's much more, it's like a news source that tells you it's more of a reporting source as opposed to, it's not a lobbying piece.
Right.
So it's kind of interesting to look at that too. And there's some other, and even the Columbus Dispatch does a much better job of report. You just don't see it in the Cleveland Plain Dealer the way you do in the Columbus papers.
And the Ohio School Board Association will send us like their summaries and how this could impact education in Ohio, on things as well. But you know, some boards are very active in this. There's just an article in the Plain Dealer about, you know, the vouchers and, you know, there are boards that are taking, you know, a lot of action because those are affecting the finances in their district. So there is a possibility that something like that would really impact us, and this person on the board would have much more of a role.
And what's the situation? I remember a few years back, or maybe it's more than that, I'm dating myself, where there was something with funding, where there was a letter writing campaign.
Right.
Where
Right,
I don't
Bob
remember.
started a campaign, and that was about our share
Okay.
versus private,
Okay,
you know, charter schools.
right. So maybe like the backpack bill,
Yeah.
something like that could be something that would be.
My guess is whomever would be on the legislative side should probably come from policy, or is it?
Well, it makes
exclusively-
sense, and is it you two? So, and we need just one liaison for this, but I think that does make sense.
So if
Yeah,
I.
I'd love to do it.
Yeah,
Okay.
great,
Right, and I've got
Make
some
it Robert.
stuff to send you, some
Okay.
links. I mean, I look at it anyway, but
And you can work together too on
Yeah.
like, you know, hey, this is something we really should draw to the attention.
right.
Sure.
Again, my feeling is, I know we're all reading this and we're all pretty informed, but is the rest of our community informed about things that could have an impact on their own child's education?
Sure.
And I feel like maybe we could do a better job of that. And also it helps, you know, if somebody's really got their eye on it, Lauren and I can take a breath and know that you're gonna let us know if there's something really important
Sure.
that we need to pay extra special attention to, so. Okay, so Robert,
And then what's the student achievement piece? I don't understand what that is.
When we went to OSBA, the one side of the convention hall was just showcasing different activities in different schools, ways students were excelling. So I think I've actually never had a liaison to this before.
Okay.
So I'm not sure, but I think what it is networking about different ways that schools recognize and different programming that schools offer for students. And then they showcase them at the convention in November.
Okay.
so this person could, because we have something new and we're showcasing by building, would there be a role for this person in that, like helping brainstorm? I don't know, I'm just thinking out loud.
Is it like OMEA? Like we send a group to perform or we send a group? Okay.
And I do think there's an application process as well.
Just like OMEA.
We have to have it, but
We
we
don't.
don't.
It
No, we
was
don't
on-
have
We
to
don't
have
have
it.
to have it.
You approved it, so it's there. It's great because we're showcasing academic excellence.
We
so
already approved it.
I approve, but I would recommend, based on the totals, that Catherine, Lauren, or Robert would consider doing it.
And I was actually going to recommend that Catherine, so before we answer that question, Catherine take the second position with finance.
Okay.
And Robert, if you would switch out with me with healthcare,
Okay.
that gives you another not so heavy lifting committee, and it takes me, that was my fourth, which I
But
don't
he
need.
did good at student achievement too.
No, but
because-
that's like on top of,
Oh,
sorry,
that too?
that's additional.
Yeah, we're layering
We'll
that
get
on.
there, hold on. I mean, that is like, it remains to be seen what that will or won't become.
Catherine is still on my chart on as 4.
As
Sharon has
No,
4,
4.
Lori has 4.
I have Sharon as 5 because she's on records retention.
Oh, I didn't really count that.
I'm trying to give Sharon all the
Well,
credit.
you're
I
gonna
can.
count
All right, all right. Lauren has 4. And Robert has 5. And as far as the heavy ones, Robert, you've got 2 of the heavier liftings because capital planning and policy are going to be,
Sure.
we all have 2 except for you.
okay, so I need to be student achievement? Is that what
No,
you're
no,
saying?
I'm just
Oh.
saying, if you want to be a second on a heavy lifting one, but I just wanted to call
I
it
did a
out for
lot
you.
of heavy lifting
know.
this last year, so,
For 6 years, this woman has been.
yeah, I'm
Yeah, okay.
happy to,
And I do think.
I mean,
know
I'll
you-
do it if you need me to,
No,
obviously.
I know
Okay.
you very humbly said that capital, capital planning runs itself, and I mean, you really, like, there definitely needs to be, and you offer, but I mean, there needs to be some time in transitioning where you're working to hand, if you're gonna be handing that off, because, that is very much an area where you have a lot of expertise.
And I think it's doable. And I think the fact that, like, I could see the facility plan now coming to a work session
Okay,
for a discussion,
Mhm.
so.
okay. And if it does, I mean, if it does come to, I mean, can we just talk for a second about logistics? So if it does come to a work session,
Mhm.
and if there's something that you say, well, you know, I don't know, like, what about this, or we didn't ask that question? What is the process then to get that answer? We'll go back to Chris. We have Chris at the work session.
So you would have
Before we
Chris at
vote
the
on it at
work
the next meeting.
session. So the way I've done advisory councils is that you'll make a recommendation to say this should go to a work session. So we're really interested about this. We want to share it out with the entire board. I'm thinking specifically like the bus garage. So we need to share this out with the entire board. That's a recommendation. We're ready to have the conversation, or we need to answer this question or this piece. And so then at a work session, we would have them come in and no action taken. But we would bring in, like we did for the actual meeting, right?
Yeah.
Where we bring in the company, we bring in Chris, we bring in Jim if needed. Ashley would be there because the finance piece probably, I would be there. You'd have your community members. But that's how those, you can invite all those people to the work session. We can still do presentations at work sessions. I sometimes think talking around the table is easier.
Yeah, or we start
but-
off with a presentation, but come to the table.
Yeah, and then, and the public's welcome, so they're welcome to be part of that conversation, and they understand that. I would hope that when we work through something at a work session, they've seen the work, so if it's at the next meeting and we're voting on something, it shouldn't be a complete shock, because we've had this open discussion and sharing, and if you have a question that we can't answer, we've also sent things back. So I'm specifically thinking about athletics and the scoreboard. We had this great plan and we brought it in and we knew how you were going to do it and all the things. And then there was a problem with size and the fact that pieces of the stonework where the scoreboard went were donated and they couldn't be changed out, like because of the way that the trustees had done the brick. So that affected size. So we had to ship it back down. So in the work session, it got shipped back down. To do more work until it was refined. So those
Right.
kinds of things happen too. If that's a process that you're interested in, it might be worth trying.
I think that makes perfect sense.
All right, so, did we decide who's student achievement?
Now you have technology committee, safety committee, and student achievement are the ones that I don't have two on, or one or.
Yeah, so I think technology committee, we can keep as one, and safety, we can keep as one.
But
And then,
You could assign someone as an alternate,
or we can assign an alternate.
because that gives us 5. That gets us closer to even.
All right, so Jennifer, you've been paying closer attention to, so who?
Well, here's what I think.
Think that-
Lauren can only really go on safety now because Catherine is already on safety, and that would give Lauren 5 spots.
And then vice versa for technology.
And then vice versa, Catherine would go on technology, which would give her 5 slots, which then means we have basically 5 slots across the board. So anyone except Lori could do student achievement. Or you could say that Sharon's records committee doesn't count and she only has 4, so she has to do student achievement. Now, I'll make an
Also has
argument.
board president though.
I know, but I'm gonna make an argument
Yeah.
to this. She's a liaison to intercouncil and the DLT.
Hmm.
So if you're really talking about where student achievement would align, it's gonna align to strategic planning. Or in my opinion, this liaison group, and not that I'm pushing. We can talk this through, but it might be a fit, and I don't even know what it is, so that could be completely fun, because it may end up
That's
being
fine.
something
It's good.
outstanding.
I'm good, I'm happy to do it.
It's starting to sound like one of those logic puzzles where you have the names down one side and the jobs across the top.
That's what it looks like.
Exactly. Just quickly give me a cursory glance, because the other thing that I was hoping to achieve with this is that we would all be working together in different combinations. So I just,
Seems like it.
does it seem like we're,
Yeah.
okay.
I think
Yeah,
I'm on
it's
its way.
I've gotten
Everyone's
to way
boring.
Okay, that looks good, I think.
It's diverse and groupings.
Perfect.
Yeah, the only 2 that are the same are technology and safety, which are not really.
Right.
Next.
Well, thank you all for that. That was great. I'm excited. I'm excited about these committees, these advisory committees. I'm excited about the work we're talking about doing?
The last piece was just the communication. So what I wanted to share is what that PDF, which we kind of used at the beginning of this discussion, those will all be updated on the website. So there's a lot of yellow and there were some things we didn't know. So we'll work to get all of that updated. And some of the new committees may not have defined their purpose yet. So
And Charlene is planning on having that all go live after the 19th when we voted on, when we've publicized, or
if we can get it ready by the 19th, I would say yes. I'm just nervous because there are some new committees. So it might be something where we might say in construction or in
Yeah.
progress, right? So here's the athletic committee and we're working on it, but more to come.
I just meant at the earliest because I don't know if everyone's gotten their bios to Charlene, updated bios
But
yet.
you can't have.
We needed these assignments.
Right.
Yeah.
So after this.
Committee
I don't
structure.
have my committee structure on my bio. You don't have to do that.
Okay.
Because it says on the website, which board participant. But you can. put it there.
Also, you need to contact, remember that email from the high school about signing diplomas?
Nope, it's right here.
Oh, okay, you got it. Okay, so you can follow up. Oh, you can sign it now.
Yep, we're gonna take care of
Okay,
it.
all right, sorry. I just don't want to forget that.
Okay,
'cause
since the
People
high
are ahead
school,
of us on like who the officers are and.
Since, just something for future reference, since the high school's wearing white, or they voted, the high school class voted, the senior class voted to wear white,
All wear white?
all wear white. Does that mean that we have to wear white? And if so, I just need some lead time to buy something white.
Yeah.
we wear
I feel
white
like-
gowns. or
Well,
black?
the teachers.
You guys,
wear-
like, don't surprise.
Yeah, that's
superintendent.
not, like, we get to that later.
Yeah,
Right? Get to that later.
Okay.
Is it usually split black? and white?
Whatever the teachers are doing, I think is what we should do.
Okay,
So I'm gonna guess they're gonna keep
Sounds
it
like
black.
it's-
okay.
That's great. I love that. I want to hear more about that.
Okay, stick to the agenda, but thank you for that. See, you're already present. Good job. Yes. Order, please. Let's bring it back. All right. Is there anything else on the board participation in committees? Jennifer, anything,
I
Ashley?
think we've addressed everything.
Okay, great.
Before we move on to C, I did want to circle back and mention one thing about A that I don't think we mentioned in the document about communicating sort of the reasoning behind the changes for the meeting. I'm not sure we mentioned the fact that there will be students now at the meeting, which could factor into our decision about streaming and parents
Right.
not wanting their kids on YouTube and stuff like that. So I think that should be noted in that document. Add it right now.
And I would just also add that while, yes, they could get up and just run right out after they perform, encouraging them to stay and, you know, see what goes on, and like, that wouldn't be, we don't have to like shove them out the door. I know I've been to them sometimes and they're like, and now everyone, please leave.
Please leave.
Please stay, you know, you don't have to leave, stay and watch the meeting. What gurney child does not want to sit through a board meeting?
Well, and there was a request this morning to change Gurney's time, but I wasn't even going to do that because we can just do a special notice based on when kids needed to go to bed and the meeting starting at 7. There was a request to start early, but I figured we would just address it when we hit Gurney's month. Okay. So, I mean, I didn't want to make things way too complicated for tonight, but those are little details we'll tweak if we need to. All right, so now we're on the draft documents. So I tried to put in everything everybody shared, so from K-12 and then anything I received in email.
So I spent some time working on this. And I felt like when we left the retreat, we were really close on some wording around the mission and the vision. So if you guys don't mind, I'll just read you what I came up with. So.
And it should be in your PDF. if
Oh, do you have,
pull up
because I did
vision.
email it to Jennifer, so you might have it ahead of time. So the vision is simply the board supports the strategic direction of the district. The mission, and again, I'm open to a conversation. I just find to put this out. Sometimes it's hard to wordsmith when you're in a group of 7 people. The mission is the board engages the administration, staff, students, and community in bolstering the Chagrin Falls Exempted School District as a high-functioning organization with shared ownership of district goals and achievements. Do you want to stop there and discuss? Do you guys feel like,
Yeah, let's stop and think about it.
yeah?
The mission, I think, is fantastic. Well, even if if like it needs to be wordsmith or not, but the vision, I feel like, isn't visionary.
Do we need a board vision or can we just have a board? Because I feel like it's going to be the vision of
I
the
know,
district.
right.
Yeah.
And I didn't want to reiterate personalizing education because it sounds
think
like we
it's
might be changing
Right.
how that's worded.
Right.
So we could say the board supports the strategic vision of the district.
Can we roll your vision language into the mission?
That would be my suggestion. When I think about a vision or a vision statement, it's looking forward, you know, it's future. This to me almost seems sedate, where it's, I think that it could be.
It's not visionary.
Kind of obvious.
No, it's not. But
Right.
I couldn't think of like what,
Well, maybe we don't
What
need
we
a vision.
understood.
Maybe we just have a
mission
mission.
statement.
Is that?
And that was, yeah. I honestly believe that every organization should share the district vision. So I think that you always have the same, we called it a directional system, just so that we didn't have to navigate between vocabulary, if that makes sense. But if your mission or if your vision for the district is about empowering students, and we'll go through the strategic planning and see if we want to refine that, we may not, and that's perfect too. But that could be the overarching vision of the Chagrin Falls schools, and therefore every organization within that umbrella would fall under that vision. Then each component has a mission of how they serve and how they're going to achieve the overarching vision. At least that's been my experience, but I don't know.
So let's just pick up,
I agree.
let's just keep it the board, well, we won't really have one,
Well,
but
we
if we
could
did, it would be the
restate-
board
we just say
supports
you
the
don't need
district
one.
vision.
You just restate the
yeah, we
Chagrin.
could restate the current vision statement for the district. And
Okay.
then when it changes, if it changes, we'll change ours to match
Or we
it.
could just say the board supports the district vision.
But if you make a banner, the Chagrin vision would look a lot better.
When we have one, I just don't really want to
Well, it could be this, we
Yeah.
could just call
Trying
it the
not to, like,
Chagrin.
reiterate
Falls
the
of
one that's out.
village.
date it at this point.
So,
Sorry, say that again.
so the mission kind of gets to, I think, two key components that we talked about. One was shared ownership. And that's not only of what we need to achieve, but also when we are high achieving, that we are sharing in that success with all of our community. And then the second was the intention to become a high functioning, I don't even want to say become, because you know, when we have newness, when we're bringing new board members in, obviously it's going to take us some time, but we want to be a high functioning board. We want our administrative team to be high functioning so that we can achieve the goals of the district.
I would potentially remove the word functioning, because to me, the implication there is that it is currently dysfunctional, which.
Well, that's why I said
what I mean?
bolstering as a high functioning, not to become high functioning, saying we're not,
Right,
but saying, so I don't know, I like it there. There's something about wanting to be and maintain a high functioning state. Maybe there's another way to say it, but,
How are we gonna use this?
well, we talked, you know.
I know.
Yeah.
I mean, how now that it's just us, how are we
It'll
gonna use
probably
it?
go on the website for the board. I mean, this will be a guiding principle for at
We
least
put-
this
For
year.
all of your work.
We put the
You set
statements on
goals
our
and-
agendas, like it was posted. Not all the details, I mean, not all your beliefs and everything. That's why Deb suggested having a banner that, you know, when you go to Rotary or something, they have their 4 statements. It's very clear. That's where some boards have gone to state their beliefs.
So it's always guiding your work.
Is it the high functioning aspect that you're trying to capture, or the fact that like, because I think sometimes what gets lost is how comprehensive the scope of running the district is, that we are always looking at things from multiple viewpoints need to be considered, that decision-making is always in the student's best interest, but we have to weigh the needs of the staff and the needs of.
Not for me, but that might be something that you're thinking.
I didn't know if you were trying to get to that it's like the organizational side or the high functioning, because I
So-
agree, it does concern me a little bit that it sounds like it's been at some point dysfunctional.
well, I think the tenet of what you're saying is absolutely correct. I believe the way that you just described it to me, that makes sense. I think for me, it's just the language itself.
Right.
That's the only.
Right. So what, as I reflected on, in this being something that's very specific to this year, or maybe the next 2 years, but not much longer than that,
Okay.
what do we need to do? Well, we have a whole new board. We need to get to know each other. We need to become a high functioning team. And that encompasses a lot of different things, and building knowledge, building working relationships, trying new committee structures, that whole thing. And we have new administration. And at least one of my goals would be in the next 2 years that we support our administrators and our staff in becoming as high functioning as they can be, again, with new people and new culture and new issues. So that's where I was coming from with, to me, it encompasses a lot of work in that, right? It's like,
Well, what about if, so the board
you could say
engages,
high performing, but I don't know if that helps.
what, the board engages the administration, staff, students, and community in elevating the CFEVS district leadership with shared ownership and district goals and achievements.
That sounds good.
Elevating the leadership.
Yeah, because we
Okay.
are the leaders as well, so we're elevating our own.
Reread.
The board engages the administration, staff, students, and community in elevating the CFEVS district leadership with shared ownership.
I feel
And
like
district
elevating the
goals.
leadership indicates that they should all bow down to, I'm not sure
I
about
kind of
that
agree with that
wording,
only because of
like,
the.
we want to elevate our
sometime-
own profile
yeah.
like that. That sounds. a
And
little
it's
weird.
the sometimes perception of elevating, the administration over everybody else. It's all
Right,
about them, Or it's
exactly.
all about you, or it's all, yeah.
Yeah, if anything's going to be elevated, it doesn't seem like it should be. elevated.
Bolstering to me feels like propping up though. which
Right,
isn't-
no, I agree.
It is something about achieving.
See, I'm always a fan of the Oxford comma in these spaces where rather than just have one overarching comment, have this idea of like, I'm thinking, as a cohesive comma, intersectional comma, ...
High performing, yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
More
the English
specific.
teacher in me, but
Or we just go generic and say, the excellence of the district. I
sure.
think Either way.
You say maintaining the excellence and then go with your list.
I think if it's a mission, though, the kind of the more specific we
Yeah.
are, the better.
Yeah.
So what was-
Remember,
you
it's
said
about the
cohesive,
board.
high functioning.
Right. That's where we get confused.
Sorry, say that
That's
again.
the problem. You have to remember, this is a mission for the board.
Yeah,
Right,
it's
not the
a little
district.
bit-
That's
it's
true.
the board. I think it needs to be a little bit more community facing, maybe.
So that's where, like, over the weekend, I was more in the historically, one of the major unique attributes of the schools that I think enable us to be successful is the community engagement and support piece, right? Like, we can always depend on our taxpayers to support our schools. We can depend on parents to volunteer in our schools. We can depend on community members to all sorts of things, like from, like bringing our students into, so, and when we hear from students who come back, or even at graduation, it's the link between the community and the schools that they feel gave them something distinctive. So I keep trying to capture that sentiment, because I think that is, that is a very compelling part of the student educational experience that I think we play a key role in supporting. I really don't know how to say that.
Yes,
without
put that in
droning
5
on
words.
for 7 sentences. I mean, is it in connecting the district through shared ownership of different, and connecting, it's connecting the district. Student, I think we have to get. Sorry. What is an adjective for that? What is an adjective for that dovetailing of responsibility, not responsibility, but like giving that to our students?
I think of it more as leveraging, like it's a,
Yeah,
We-
leveraging the relationships.
as opposed
See,
to.
and I think of it as inspiring, like you're inspiring
Leveraging
people,
is
so.
much more corporate
If you
than
went,
inspiring.
if you looked at the sentence and the board engages the administration, staff, students and community and CFEVS district inspiring shared ownership of district goals and achievement,
Mhm.
you get
I like
out the
that.
whole meeting. Oh,
That's
the whole
great.
meeting, the
That's
whole
great,
meeting.
yeah.
The whole meeting. You get rid of the whole.
Yeah.
You lose the high performing, high functioning.
But we know we are. I mean, no offense,
that.
it's in our vision, like,
Yeah.
I'm not trying to be, you're talking about a mission.
Right. No, and it's
And the
right, that's-
mission is a
yeah,
little
right.
different because we're trying to improve in areas
Yeah.
that we may not,
Yeah,
we have room, like there's,
That's a good point. We know who we are.
but it's
We
up
know.
to you.
Yeah. No, I like that.
yeah, I like
I
the
like that
shared
too.
ownership. And I think it's still honoring the functionality of it because it's implied, it's embedded in that language.
Could you reread it, Jennifer?
Yep, I'm going to rewrite it, if I can remember. I've not had a mission with the word ownership, so I'm super excited because we only say leadership. So it says the board engages the administration, staff, students, and community in the CFEVS district, inspiring shared ownership of district goals and achievements.
Ooh, I like that.
Yes.
And is that the right order of administration, staff, students, and community, or do we want to start with students?
I'll tell you where I stand on that, is that you hire administrators.
Okay.
So why is
Oh.
staff delineated? Why would it just be staff, students, and community? Because now you're separating out, you're saying these are staff members and these are administrators, and I just say these are our staff.
Sure.
Yeah, we're all staff.
I agree.
So if I were gonna tweak it, that I would just say the board engages and I do think you engage your staff because they're your first direct contact to students. I do think your students are your priorities when you're making decisions. And I think that it's important that you're serving your community. If you really wanted to simplify it and you know that that's what community means, you could just define it as the board engages the school community. But we knew, like when we went down to that short of a phrase, we knew what school community was, and it was all of those things. So it just depends where you want to fall.
So you could take out the CVEVS district, so it could just be the board engages staff, students, and community. And inspiring shared ownership of district goals and achievements. I will admit, I missed
it better with
I missed the high performing piece. I do think we just lost something, but we need to decide how
Is that in the vision?
important it is.
I mean, when we're saying we're empowering them to maximize their potential, is that not high performing? I mean, in the overall Chagrin vision?
Is it high performing or high functioning?
It's probably there. I just think that it's so important in the next 2 years that we onboard quickly, we become a functioning team really quickly, that we help with all of the changes in the district, that those get incorporated quickly so that we're moving into the high functioning stage of things. So all of that has to happen for us to achieve our vision. It's just whether or not we want to specifically call it out as something that we're really going to focus on in the next 2 years.
See, I think of that as more, if we were to have bullet points, that would be more.
Right,
Like
exactly.
those are,
What we
I
do
feel like
to
those are
achieve
the
mission.
goal, the
Objectives.
objectives that we
Yeah.
accomplish
Right.
with it. Because, there's work that we need to do.
And I'm not advocating bullet
get-
points, I'm just saying that's the way I think of it in my, as
Mhm.
far as.
Drilling down one more bullet point.
I'm gonna say, I kind of like, when I read it now, I like it to say in the CFEVS district,
I do
because
too.
then we're not engaging rhetoric that may not apply to us. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
We're really focusing on our students and our community.
So the board engages the staff, students, and community of the CFEVS district, inspiring shared ownership of district goals and achievements.
And it was in that order.
Oh, what
District
about,
goals to maintain.
wait, what
high
about,
achievement.
well, it depends on, so what if we switched it around? The board inspires shared ownership of district goals and achievements and engages staff, students, and community, or by engaging staff, students, and community in the district. I don't know if that works better.
I think it's more active the other way.
I know what you mean though, because you want
Yeah.
to get inspired up front, but
Could it be to
Shared.
inspire as opposed to inspiring? Is that clearer or?
to inspire students, staff, and the community of the Chagrin Falls exempted village district.
We engage to inspire.
I think she meant just instead of inspiring, instead of
Yeah,
inspiring, instead of
comma,
comma,
instead of
inspiring,
comma,
yeah,
yeah.
we
Right.
engage
To
to
inspire.
I mean, maybe that's what it should be. Instead of just comma inspiring, it's to
Yeah, we
inspire
Yeah.
engage to
Shared.
inspire.
ownership.
The board engages the staff, students, and community of the district to inspire shared ownership of district. That's great. I like that.
And here's another where the high performing is gonna fall in. Your district goals are gonna be centered around academic excellence and high performance.
And
So
you have
I'm still
achievement
trying to
there.
see where we're gonna draw that in, but it's, to me, it's still.
Yeah,
All
we're
there.
gonna do it no matter what. It's just whether it gets.
Can you,
called
instead of
out.
saying achievements, should you say student achievement?
No,
but
it's
that
got
gets you
to
have
have
your-
achievement.
It's more,
Okay, okay.
yeah, like each child in
Community
their
can
own
have
way
achievement.
maximizes
Right.
their, yeah.
But the whole idea is we're all pulling together.
Right.
And whether we succeed or fail is all of us. It's grandparents and community members and.
Yeah.
So just abandon the whole thing and say we're all in this together.
There we go.
Exactly.
Do a music video.
All right, can we move on to code of conduct?
Oh, that was my head.
Hold on. The board engages the staff, students, and community of the Chagrin Falls exempted village district to inspire.
Shared ownership.
Okay, I got it now. Now you can move on.
All right, so number one, board members always put students' interests first.
Catherine, have you looked at this? Or is this your?
Yeah, it's my,
So these are, because I just see, oh, you're underneath there, okay.
Yeah.
So yours are under potential issues.
and what I tried to do is take some that you'll see, there's some that I merged together.
Okay.
Where we had like several people wanted it, but it wasn't like the highest one. So we all agreed, we always put students first. So that seems, but it's also very clear. It's everything's been changed to be stated in the positive and in the current, not the future tense. Number two, board members were,
I think the apostrophe goes after the S.
Yeah.
This is not.
oh, sorry.
I'm so glad that's your, you can prove myself.
Board members remain focused on the district's vision and goals.
And I don't know, we capitalized district in the last thing. I don't
Yeah.
know what the.
I like that you use remain. Because I think that it
Yeah.
also speaks to the fact that this has been a continuation. This isn't something new.
And that we will continue to strive to remain focused and not get sidetracked.
Right.
Right, so it
Mhm.
serves both of those. Number three, board members strive for positive working relationships with each other by recognizing each other's strengths and diversity, sharing views respectfully, and seeking consensus, while ultimately abiding by majority decisions of the board. So that one I merged together, the how do we treat each other language, with the idea that while we may have different opinions, that when we do vote on something, we stand behind and act as an entity, as one entity. We can come back and discuss these. I know you guys may have also put some time into this as well. Number four, board members strive for positive working relationships with the superintendent and treasurer, honoring their respective authority to advise the board, implement board policy, and manage the district. There was some other word besides manage that I didn't like, so I changed that to manage the district. And then the last one, board members represent all constituents honestly and equally, seeking to be fair, just, and impartial in all decisions and actions.
It's great.
Yeah, I do too. Thank you. First, I know that took time.
Is there anything that got lost that anyone cares about in particular that is no longer in here?
I like that you removed thou. That just was so aggressive, you know, it's like love, honor, and obey.
Did lose where it said monitoring district performance. I don't know if performance is something that we wanted to get in there somehow.
So that was the one that got incredibly curtailed to just we're focused on vision and goals. And I feel like part of being any strategic plan is going to be monitoring achievement toward that plan and monitoring performance. I didn't feel like we needed to call it out
I just feel like we sort of lost it in the last step, so I didn't know if we
Right.
wanted to have that like.
if it matters to anybody.
somewhere.
I feel like the way that you have it here is a cleaner way. of
Yeah, I don't
stating
think we need it.
the
Again, there's like
overall-
achievement that we're referring back to, which kind of covers it, but.
Yeah, so number 5 on Deb's summary got kind of merged into how we work together.
I like how it's organized and the order that it's in also. I think it's good.
Yeah, I have no suggestions. I think it's great.
Mm-mm.
Nice job.
We don't have other business on the agenda, but we have covered the business for the agenda. Is there anything that we covered in A, B, or C that somebody wants to just revisit, or are we? Okay, could I have a motion to adjourn?
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second?
I'll second.
Ashley, would you take the roll, please?
Mrs. Rose. Yes. Mrs. Bendel. Yes. Mrs. Garvey.
Yes.
Mrs. Miller.
Yes.
Dr. Sucker.
Yes.
16.